My husband sat across from his attorney on a Tuesday afternoon and said 4 words that were supposed to end me. She doesn't know anything. He was wrong about that. He had been wrong about it for 8 months. And the attorney sitting beside my husband, the one nodding along, already drafting the strategy, had no idea that the attorney sitting on my side of the table had been preparing for this exact conversation since February. My name is Rachel Mercer. I am 41 years old. I am a senior loan officer at a regional bank, and a morning my husband's lawyer called mine to discuss the account my client believes his wife is unaware of. My lawyer laughed. Quietly, professionally, and then she said, "Let's schedule that meeting. Drop your city in the comments right now. Tell me what time it is where you are. And stay until the end, because what happened in that meeting room changed everything." And the look on my husband's face when he realized I had known for 8 months is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. My husband, Daniel Mercer, was a financial planner. He spent his professional life telling other people how to protect their money. He was good at it, methodical, patient. The kind of man who read every clause of every contract before signing anything. He was also, as it turned out, the kind of man who opened a private brokerage account 14 months into our marriage and spent the next 4 years quietly moving money into it. I want to tell you how I found out. Because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a confrontation or a confession or a slip of the tongue. It was a Tuesday evening in February, and I was reviewing our joint tax return before we filed it, the way I always did, because I am a loan officer and reading financial documents is what I do for a living. And I found a number that didn't belong. A small interest income line. Not large, $847. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. Impossible to explain if you were. I knew every account we had, every investment, every savings account, every fund. I had helped set most of them up. I knew exactly what interest income we should have been generating, and this $847 was not part of that picture. I did not ask Daniel about it that night. I did not ask him about it the next day or the day after that. Instead, I did what I do at work when a loan application contains a number that doesn't fit the rest of the file. I started looking. What I found over the following 3 weeks was a brokerage account in Daniel's name only, opened 4 years earlier at a firm we had never discussed and never used jointly. The account had been funded through a series of transfers from his personal consulting income work he did on weekends for private clients. Income I knew existed, but had never tracked closely because we had always kept our personal earnings somewhat separate before pooling them for joint expenses. The balance in that account, when I found it, was $312,000. $312,000 built over 4 years. In an account I was never meant to see. I sat with that number for a long time. I am trained to read financial documents without emotion. It is a professional skill I have spent 15 years developing, but sitting at my kitchen table on a Wednesday evening in February, looking at a brokerage statement for an account my husband had never mentioned, I felt something that had nothing to do with professional training. I felt the specific coldness of understanding that the person across the breakfast table from you every morning has been making a separate plan. I called my attorney the next day. Her name is Christine Park. She had been recommended to me by a colleague 2 years earlier, and I had kept her card without ever expecting to use it. I used it now. Christine asked 3 questions. How long had the account been open? Whether Daniel had any pattern of financial concealment she should know about, and whether I had documentation I could share securely. I had documentation. I had been quietly gathering it for 3 weeks. Christine reviewed everything over the following week. Then she called me back and said 6 words I have thought about many times since. He thinks he's ahead of you. She was right. That was exactly what Daniel thought, and it was the assumption that made everything that followed possible. I want to stop here because if you are watching this and you are in a marriage where something doesn't add up, where a number appears that shouldn't be there, where an explanation doesn't quite fit the facts, I want you to hear this clearly. Trust what you see. The training you have, whatever it is, whatever skills you have built across your professional life, those skills work in your personal life too. You are allowed to use them. I spent 3 weeks confirming what I already knew before I made a single call. Those 3 weeks were the most important 3 weeks of the entire process. Christine and I spent the following 5 months building a complete picture. Every transfer, every deposit, every withdrawal. The consulting income streams that had funded the account. The tax implications of what Daniel had done. The legal status of funds accumulated during a marriage, regardless of which spouse's name was on the account. That last point mattered considerably. Under our state's laws, income earned during a marriage is marital income. It doesn't matter whose name is on the account it flows into. Daniel had spent 4 years believing he was building a private reserve. What he had actually been building, under the law, was a jointly owned asset that he had failed to disclose. Christine described it to me simply. He hid money that was already half yours. We did not file immediately. We waited. We waited because Christine wanted the picture to be complete, and because I had learned, across 15 years of loan work, that patience is the most underrated financial instrument there is. Daniel did not know any of this was happening. He went to work. He came home. He made dinner on Thursdays the way he always had. He asked about my day and listened to the answer and sat beside me on the couch, and I held what I knew the way you hold a card you are not ready to play yet. The call from Daniel's attorney came on a Monday morning in October. I was at my desk reviewing a commercial loan application when Christine's name appeared on my phone. I stepped out of my office and answered. Christine's voice was steady. Daniel had retained an attorney. His attorney had called her that morning to discuss, as he put it, some financial matters my client would like to resolve efficiently. During that call, Daniel's attorney had referenced an account he described as belonging solely to Daniel, established before certain joint financial arrangements and not subject to division. Then he said the sentence that Daniel had apparently authorized him to say. My client believes his wife is unaware of this account and would prefer to keep it that way. I stood in the hallway outside my office and listened to Christine relay this information. Then I said, "What did you tell him?" Christine said, "I told him we'd be happy to schedule a meeting." We scheduled the meeting for the following Thursday. The conference room was on the 14th floor of Christine's firm's building, floor-to-ceiling windows, a long table, 8 chairs, water pitchers at each end. Daniel arrived with his attorney, a man named Garrett, who I had never met, who looked across the table at me with a particular confidence of someone who believes he holds a card the other side hasn't seen. He did not hold that card. Christine opened her binder. She placed a document summary on the table in front of Garrett and a copy in front of Daniel. Then she placed one in front of me and one in front of the empty chair beside her, which belonged to the forensic financial analyst she had retained 4 months earlier. I watched Daniel look at the document in front of him. I watched him read the first line. I watched his eyes move down the page and then stop. He looked up at me. I looked back at him. Christine said, "We've been aware of the account since February. We have a complete record of all transfers, all deposits, and all withdrawals dating to the account's opening. We've also documented the consulting income streams that funded it and their status under marital property law in this state." Garrett started to say something. Christine continued. The balance as of last Friday was $318,000 including returns. We're treating the full amount as marital property subject to division, along with the consulting income that was not reported on joint returns for the past 3 years, which creates some additional considerations we'd like to discuss. The room was very quiet. Daniel said my name, just my name. The way you say someone's name when you have run out of everything else. I looked at him. I had thought about this moment for 8 months. I had imagined what I might feel: anger, or grief, or the particular satisfaction of having been right about something you wished you had been wrong about. What I actually felt was much simpler than any of those things. I felt finished waiting, finished holding the card, finished sitting across breakfast tables and dinner tables from someone who was building an exit while I was building a life. I said, "I've known since February." Daniel, Garrett looked at his client. Daniel looked at me. The water pitchers sat at each end of the table, perfectly still. The settlement took 4 months to finalize. The $318,000 account was divided as marital property. The unreported consulting income created a separate negotiation that resolved in a manner Christine described as appropriate given the circumstances. I kept the house. Daniel moved to a rental in another part of the city. He called me twice after the settlement was finalized. I let both calls go to voicemail. The messages were short. In the second one, he said he hadn't meant for things to end this way. I believed him. I think he had meant for things to end a different way, a way in which I didn't know about the account, and he walked away with a reserve I never knew existed. That is the way he had planned for things to end. It simply wasn't the way they did. I still work at the bank. I was promoted 8 months after the settlement. My manager cited my attention to detail and my ability to identify discrepancies that other reviewers had missed. She did not know the half of it. I keep a copy of that first tax return, the one with the $847 interest line, in a folder in my desk drawer. Not as a reminder of what happened, as a reminder of what I almost missed, and of what happens when you trust what you see, even when what you see is something you would very much prefer not to. The $847 changed everything. Not because of what it was worth, because of what it meant. Now I want to hear from you. If you found a number in a document that didn't belong, a small one, easy to miss, what would you have done? Would you have asked immediately? Or would you have started looking? Tell me in the comments, and tell me the city you are watching from. I want to see how far Rachel's story has traveled. Subscribe before you go. More stories are coming that you will not want to miss.